Welcome to Multifamily Deal Lab, where your host, Dave Lindahl, dissects recent multifamily deals done by his guests. Dave will extract what went right, what went wrong, and a number of key takeaways so your next deal may be more profitable.
Welcome everybody to this edition of Multifamily Deal Lab. I've got two gentlemen with me, Mark Schuler and Josh Welch, and they're going to talk about the deal they did, 161 units in Houston, Texas, that had a gang in there. And we'll talk about that a little bit on how they got rid of that gang. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell everybody where you're from?
Sure. Why don't I start? I'm Mark Schuler. Been practicing architecture for about 40 years out in Seattle. Been associated with Dave for almost 10 years now.
Long time.
And have just been grinding away, doing deals. It's a grind. If you think otherwise, you're just mistaken. But, kind of a deal junkie. I partnered up with Josh about 8 years ago, and we've done several deals together. It's been a good partnership. Josh, why don't you take it from here?
Great. So I'm Josh Welch. My company is Three Pillars Capital. We're based out of Houston, Texas. Been around since 2017. Total portfolio count is totally acquired about 4,000 units in total. We've sold some since then, but that's our kind of count since we started. Mark's been a huge, player and co-GP with us in a lot of those deals. So, his expertise really helps us in a lot of different areas, especially when it comes to due diligence and just common sense and just his expertise in that space. So we're the value add focused multifamily shop. Don't do that much Class A, mostly B and C, repositioning the assets. And it's been a fun ride so far.
How'd you guys meet up? Decide that you want to work together?
That's kind of an interesting story. I live in the Puget Sound, where, to put it mildly, government interference in the private market is kind of a sport and knows no limits. The latest intrusion is City of Seattle has now limited late fees to $10. So I have a 40 unit I own here, and on March 7th, this month, 26 out of the 40 units was late. So I got really tired of doing deals up here, and I sold two of the three assets I had and started doing reconnaissance trips down to Houston. One of those trips I met Josh through a mutual acquaintance who was a broker. Turns out we're both Michigan grads, both went to Michigan engineering. I tucked tail and ran over to architecture halfway through the program and just found that was a better fit for me. But we think a lot alike, and certainly look at the business very similarly. So, it's just a really natural partnership. And, we started doing deals together. So, it's just dumb luck, coincidence, stars align, however you want to call it. But, we've been, like I said, doing deals for about 8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this 161 unit deals in Houston, Texas. That's basically where you guys do business. You're set there. From what I understand, you don't go into other markets usually. That's your home base, and you guys know everything that's going on there.
Pretty much.
So how did this one come up? How did this 161 unit deal come up?
Well, this was part of a portfolio acquisition that I had known about for 3 or 4 years. And a lot of people tried to take it down, is kind of what I heard, but the sellers were a bit of a challenge, to say the least. Josh can definitely attest to that.
Mm-hmm.
And managed to get it under contract. And I think all in, how many units was it total, Josh? It was 3 assets, and I don't remember the unit count. But,
Right. So I think this is the first of the 3.
Right.
So total units was 688.
Did you have to buy all 3?
We didn't have to buy all 3. We started out with this one because this was a seller who has been kind of a godfather in the Houston market for years. His family actually built these properties. They were built in the 80s. And we happened to be the second buyer to get it out of his, to wrestle it away from the family because they didn't want to sell. They were these kind of owners that kind of set it and forget it. And then the properties kind of went to the sons and the heirs, and they were just making mailbox money. And that's what we've noticed happens in some of these older assets where, it's held in the same family for years and they refinance it. At some point, the basis and the deal is so low that they're making so much margin on their cash flow that they don't have to do any work. They can just sit back and collect a check. That's great when you've had it for 30 years and you get to do that. But if you're a new buyer operator coming in, you have to force value and you have to force income higher to make up for what you're now paying for that asset. And so this was the first of the three that we bought. And then about 6 months later, we bought the other two for a combined total of 688.
So you had made the statement that they didn't want to sell. So who was like leading the sales of this? Who was, so my understanding, it's a family asset. And then now there's some that don't want to sell, and now there are some that do want to sell. So talk about that story.
I think a lot of it was, it was a dynamic. I think there was three in the family. And the one guy was a little bit older than the rest, and he was just kind of ready to retire, really go sail to the sunset. And we were in with him. So we have, at the time we had somebody on our team that knew that family really well. He was our acquisitions director. And so he was able to get us some meetings with him, and we kind of just got through this guy and said, look, if you really want to retire, we'll buy it from you. We'll give you a great price at the time. And it was an offer that was good enough. It was too good to refuse. And he was able to convince his other two partners or in the family that it was time to let go of it. So, and they did make out pretty well.
Too good to refuse from him, but yet you saw the upside potential. I see it's a C property in a B area. Mm-hmm. So certainly there's some upgrading to do. But describe a too good to refuse offer.
Lots of hard money day one. That was one thing. Very fast due diligence. So we're talking 30 days. No financing contingencies. That's just a given. Basically to the point where even if the deal blows up and it's, 60 days has gone by, they still walk away with a decent chunk of cash. And I believe on this deal, I think it was $500,000, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. So they're going to walk out with $500,000 no matter what. Even if due diligence fell apart and has all sorts of issues, they were still going to do all right. And so I think that's really we weren't the first people to go into this neighborhood and try to get these properties. So I think having the really strong hard money offer, and then, just how aggressive we were and how fast we moved. I think speed was key as well. Like we did not hesitate to get the LOI and then go straight to PSA. I mean, we were very quick about the whole thing.
Excellent. Mark, talk about the upgrade. C property, B area. Where's the opportunity? What did you do?
Yeah. Put it mildly, there's a little bit of deferred maintenance. They had built these in the 80s and then they self-managed forever. They were basically renting to anybody with a pulse for years. And, they never, these type of family-owned assets, I've bought these. I still own one here in town in Seattle. And there's this social contract that gets kind of eventually gets into place where, you pay your rents and don't complain and I'll keep rents low. And so they really didn't do a hell of a lot to kind of maintain the place. So that's one thing. If I remember correctly, Josh, the partnership agreement had some crazy, didn't you have to go back and have them rewrite the partnership agreement before we could close because there were like partners who had deceased like years ago? And am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, there was something to do with some Mexican entity that made it a little sticky. Yeah, we had to get a couple of different signatures in the sign-offs, which again was all on their end, but it could have easily derailed the deal and got the thing held up. So we did have to work through some sticky legal issues, but it wasn't terrible from what I remember.
Yeah. And then to answer your question directly, Dave, I mean, our standard program is to kind of do a condo quality finish on the interiors. So, we're doing granite countertops, tile splashes, tile vanities, granite vanities in the bathrooms, upgraded mirrors and lighting package. We do glass vessel sinks in all the bathrooms. I mean, it's really pretty nice finish level luxury vinyl plank flooring. And the kind of the business model is to be command market plus 10% on the rents. So we're always trying to achieve our upside case on the rents. And, I don't think, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you've never achieved your upside rents on any of the deals we've done.
We've never had a situation where we're not able to achieve the upside case. It gives us a lot of margin. I think, what we look for is, not to digress, but, we look for properties where the submarket is commanding a certain market rent. Like if you have a good product and the rent, and the rent is here, right? If we find a property where the rent is not there and the product is not at the level of the rest of the market, we find those properties and we figure out what it costs us to do the work to renovate them to our level, which is usually a lot higher than the rest of the market. And then we still only target that top rent in the market. So like at the end of the day, all we're really doing is forcing value into the property. We're not banking on appreciation. So that's really the secret behind the model, is that we're finding the lowest hanging fruit where if you do the work, you'll get paid, right? So we're not waiting for the market to reward us because the market's going up. We're making the market reward us.
Forced appreciation, valuation. Right. So Mark, did I hear you say that you're looking to get market plus 10% rents?
Something like that. That's our upside case. Yeah. And I mean, but believe me, our underwriting works at the base case as well. And so all of our deals are like an APREF 20 plus IRR. And if we achieve the upside, well, we're just making all that much more for our investors. So, but we always underwrite to the base case. We don't bank on anything. We don't assume that we're going to make the upside case at all.
Right. So per door, how much were you putting in per door?
Oh boy, back in that era, 4 years ago. I mean, I think we were at 16 to 17 a door. Inflation and supply chain problems, that number's gone up since then. But it's a substantial lift.
Yeah.
Josh can address this more than I can, but his company is vertically integrated as well. So all the labor is in-house, all the asset management and all the contracting help is in-house on W-2s. So the expense side of the ledger is under control. That cost for anybody else who is doing third-party contractors and third-party management would easily be twice that.
Yeah.
So, the equivalent for a different syndicator who's hiring a contractor to come in is $32,000 to $35,000 a door.
Wow. Good point. In terms of the opportunity when you start bringing things in-house, when you start to scale. Because I heard you say, Josh, you had 4,000 units. I remember when we were up around there, we started bringing, that's when we went to our own management company. That's where we started our own make-ready teams that were going from property to property. And the economies of scale is just makes everything so much better. Yeah. So with that type of a lift, how much were you able to push rents per doll? Say $100 per door, $150, $200 per door. Where were you? Lower.
I mean, we're pushing rents, and we're actually still increasing the rents today. I want to say like maybe $150 to $200 a door. I mean, the rent increases on that particular project was about 20% across the board. All
right, good. And then let's talk about the raise. How much was the property was 14.2? And did you have to negotiate this property going in? Did you make an offer, or did you make an offer? You said you made an offer you couldn't refuse, or you made it easy to buy. But who set the price?
It was basically the way that we operate is give me a set of financials and a rent roll, and I'll tell you what I can pay for it. I don't care what you think you need for it. I'll tell you what I can afford and what makes money for me. And if it works, great. If not, we'll go on to the next one. So that's how this one happened is, we got a set of financials. Some of it was based on sales comps, but most of it was just based on how the property was performing at the time. And so we kind of backed into our sales price from there. Like we knew we needed to get a 20 IRR and something that was close to a eight-ish cash on cash annual yield. And so we found the price that he was willing to accept. That was right around that gave us those numbers.
Did he accept your first offer, or did he counter?
I want to say he accepted it because I think it was a lot more than we were ever expecting to get. Oh. So I think he was like, okay, take the money and run kind of thing. No, they didn't really. If anything, the counter was in the terms. The price was never negotiated after we gave him an offer.
So they really didn't understand or could see the upside potential in that property.
Yeah. And again, I think the thing was held together by Band-Aids for decades. So they were, again, Band-Aid solutions, didn't have a lot of CapEx dollars. So even if they wanted to, they'd have to go out and raise more money to pump back in to then bring it up to the level that we did. So, you come with a new group like us and we pump, millions of dollars into it and we raise the money. We can do that. Right. But if you're an operator, you ran out of cash years ago and you've only, you're just bang on cash flow. It's really hard to want to put the effort to do that. If you catch my drift.
Absolutely. So what was the raise of this property?
I just looked that up. It looked like it was about 7.2.
Yeah.
Did that include the rehab cost? $2.5 million?
Partly, back then we were doing bridge to perm quite a bit. So, for your listening audience that doesn't know or understand what a bridge loan is, bridge loans will finance pretty high LTV. Did we go 80% on this one, Josh?
Yeah, I was at 80% loan to cost. That was before COVID, though. I mean, this is lots of change since then.
Yeah.
But more importantly, explain why you used the bridge loan in this particular circumstance.
Well, because they finance a big chunk of the renovation as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have to go out and raise. We raised part of that reno cost, but the bridge loan will pay for quite a bit of the renovation. So that's just part of the loan. And then, there's this complicated draw process you go through every month as you grind through the renovation, you get reimbursed.
Very complicated, depending on which lender you use. Did you use Fannie Mae's bridge to perm deal?
No, it was a different bank. It was a debt lender out of New York.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we found that the Fannie stuff doesn't really work for what we do. There's just a lot of, it can work for some people. I just think that our speed of how we need to, we try to get the renovations done very quickly. Mm-hmm. We target about 5% a month so that at the end of 2 years, which is usually aligns with these loan terms, we're done with the work and we can refinance out of it. Just some of these other debt programs are a lot more flexible. The speed of the draws are a lot faster. So we don't tend to work with Fannie on those.
I've done a Fannie draw loan before, and it was the brain damage I went through to try to get those draws pulled was excruciating. So I learned I never want to do another Fannie loan like that.
Yeah. The raise, where did you get the raise? Where did you find the money?
It's kind of an all hands on deck exercise for us. I mean, we're wrapping one up right now. It's just you do enough of these for a long enough period, you just get quite an investor database put together. Mm-hmm. And back then it was more in the beginning of the exercise for us. So it's like just all hands on deck, go find money, and you hit up everybody you can find. I don't recall how long it took us to do this one, but we were able to get it done pretty quickly.
This one wasn't bad. I do know that we had a pretty big seed investor. So we have a couple of family offices that we tap into. They're usually good for, half to 3/4 of the stack, which then makes it easier to fill in the rest. Which I think is key. If you're doing any type of big deal, it's really important to get some big seed investors that that no matter what, you've got at least half of it. And that also helps give confidence to other smaller investors. Like, hey, look, I've already got half the stack, come in on the equity. They're $1 million plus check writers. I've got it taken care of. It helps give confidence too.
Do you typically do a webinar presentation to the other stack? No.
Not really. I mean, every once in a while by request, if there's like a group of guys that like, hey, I want to invest, $3 million. Can you do a small presentation? Sure, I'll do that. But we don't do like one big broadcast for the entire database.
So
to be candid, we fill our deals so quickly that we've had more than one deal where we were scheduled to do a webinar, and the raise got done before we had a chance to do the webinar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
tend to bypass that step.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is.
So we went through the raise. So tell us about the gang. I see in the notes that you wish you knew there was a gang there, and you.
Yeah.
So what?
That was in the next door asset, if I'm remembering correctly, Josh. Is that correct?
You talking about the one that we then picked up 6 months later?
Yeah. Yeah. This is where you have a mailbox money owner who rents to anybody with a pulse. Josh, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just going off of what I said before. You have when it's just that easy, and you don't have to do that much effort to make a decent return every month. You kind of you start letting your operations kind of slow down. You even employ people with a pulse. So some of these managers that they had on site, I mean, they were still, believe it or not, they were still doing leases on typewriters when we took over,
Wow.
which is like unheard of. Like that's the only time I've ever seen that. And these people were paid super low wages. So they didn't care. They were not incentivized. Leasing agents were not being incentivized on new leases. And so they literally were just, hey, as long as I can keep my job, as long as I keep it 95%, I don't care who comes in here. I don't care what your job is. I don't care how much you can pay on the deposit. Just like, hey, give me $50. Okay, come on in. Like, it was bad. So what happened is it just became known as the spot on the street where, okay, gangbangers and thugs could hang out. And it was like their central. So we had a little bit of that at this first property. And then those people all got evicted very quickly because once they realized that we were actually coming at kind of swinging the hammer and laying down the law, they left very quickly. And then went to the property next door, which is what we wound up buying 6 months after that. So we had to kick them out again. But, you fast forward 2 years, we had to do things like beef up security, do a lot of branding with the property, like a lot of marketing, just to kind of change the name, like just change the face and what people thought of it. It took a while, took a couple of years, but I think it's safe to say we're past that point now, and it's no longer seen as gang or heaven. And leasing is tremendously picked up. I think that's the other reason why we're able to push the rents, because you don't have that presence in those properties anymore. So people can feel it when they go outside. And so they want to tell their friends to live there and they feel safe to be there. So it made a huge difference.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity to be able to pick up that property next door, because if you couldn't, that would have been a big problem through the years, not getting rid of being able to get rid of those people. Because I had that happen to me in Austin, Texas. We get rid of everybody, but they went next door, and then that owner didn't care, and he didn't care to sell either. Like, damn, man, that made that property a difficult one to run.
It's gone on 3 doors. It's gone far enough where they can't mess with your property,
Did you have to change the names of the properties?
We didn't. In hindsight, maybe we should have, but we didn't. We kind of just stuck through it.
Yeah, I always say, when you're doing like a repositioning like that, is you got to change the perception of the property in the neighborhood, and you've won when you get somebody to move in and they actually refer to a friend. Like, okay, now this thing's starting to turn around, which is good.
Yeah.
All right. So, and what was that? What did it cost you for security on that property?
I mean, there was some months where it was, definitely a lot more spend in the beginning, at least 10 to 15,000 a month. And then of course, after we got a lot of the bad apples out, that we were able to cut that back. And I think today we're around a few $1,000s a month. And that's just weekend patrol and a couple of times a night on the weekdays.
Awesome.
You did have to put a security gate across the entrance to the property, however.
Yeah.
You did?
Oh,
yeah. On both of them or just one?
Both.
It was just the one next door, right, Josh?
We did both.
You did do both. All right.
Yeah. Because we actually sold this. So the deal we're talking about today, we already sold it. But
you've already sold this deal that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, what was the return?
This one was a 43% total net return.
What'd you sell it for? So you sold it for 20 something?
It was, Mark, you remember the exact price? I should know this.
I don't. I know it was a good deal.
Hold on.
Because when you punch the rents up as fast as we did, Dave, and then turn around and sell it real quick. I mean, I think we sold this in a little over 2 years, if I remember correctly.
It was exactly 2 years, almost to the day. It's kind of,
so, the IRR on that, giving the investors their money back that quickly on that, especially that profit on the back end, the IRR had to be up in, 35%, something like that. I mean, definitely over 20. Because again, our investors got paid really well, and most of that did come at the end. Right.
So yeah, that's definitely going to be a little bit higher than 20.
I say at least we performed the way we said we were.
Yeah, awesome. It sounds like even better. So I wanted to ask you guys the most inspirational books you've read, what you're reading now, the most inspirational movie that you've had, and then I'm going to ask you to give out your contact information for anybody that may want to contact you. So, how about the first inspirational book, Mark?
Inspirational. And I've read so many, Dave. The one that, I've read a lot regarding the business. I've also read a lot about the Rockefeller habits. I've just read a lot of books about how to
choose one. If you're going to recommend one book to somebody, what would it be?
Choose one. Of course, there's the Lindahl books. Those are always great.
Yeah, those are the greatest. We're just looking for the next tier down.
Probably the Rockefeller habits, and those are. I've read that book, probably I don't know how many times.
Wow.
And it just I always get a new nugget out of that. It's a classic, and but the wisdom imparted in that book, I think that take 10 of these other books off the shelf and you just read that and just read it once a year. You learn something new every time.
Excellent. Josh, how about you? Most inspirational book?
I would say, memory is going to kill me here. The one that I can remember that's the most inspirational is going to be Traction by Gino Wickman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a big one. Once I understood how, people kind of come together in tribes and, everything's about accountability and building each other up and everything's teamwork based.
Did you use that as an operating system, or do you use it now as an operating system?
We are, yeah. Yeah, we just implemented it this year. So it's hugely impactful. Did
you do it yourselves, or did you use an implementer? Hire an implementer too?
No, we talked about it, but we just hired he's now the CEO of the management company. But he came in with a lot of background in implementing that system already. So he brought his expertise and brought it into our team.
Excellent. Mark, what are you reading now?
A lot of financial reports. I don't have time to read right now. I've got so much going on that I just can't take the time to, sit down and read a book. And that's okay. I want to, but I'm trying to kind of take care of a deal in Mississippi.
No problem. Josh, what are you reading now?
What I'm reading right now? I'm actually I like audiobooks. So my audiobook right now is it's called The 4-Hour Body by this guy named
Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss. Yeah. Tim Ferriss. It's basically like, how do you find these life hacks to lose a bunch of weight, but in a healthy way, and then understand how your body can burn fat, not carbs, but what's the science behind it? So it's pretty interesting.
That's a good book. Yeah. Okay. Movie. Most inspirational movie, Mark?
Oh boy. Well, my dad was a aviator in World War II.
Yep.
And so the older I've gotten, the more I appreciated kind of the Greatest Generation. So I tend to watch I find those types of movies really inspirational. Saving Private Ryan, I've probably watched 8 times.
Have you seen Unbroken?
I don't think I have. No.
Oh, it's an awesome movie about a POW that just wouldn't give any information, and they just tried to break him, and they couldn't. It's a true story. It's a book, and it's a true story. It's just awesome.
I'm always fascinated by that. I'm from Detroit, and so grit has a big meaning to me because that's just kind of how that city works and operates. And you can't quit. You just can't quit. And so many people in life quit, and it just is mind-boggling to me because you just got to be the last guy standing, and you'll be successful. And that's kind of been my mantra throughout my life. And you understand. I was part of that 10 Paths book, and I talked about that a lot. And that interview is like, you just can't quit. And so growing up in that environment, I'm definitely, from a blue collar working class background. Everybody in my family worked the line. One of my uncles got out of the factory grind and became a brick mason. And so, I wanted something more out of life. I didn't want to kind of work with my hands. I'm not built to be a laborer. So, I just kind of dug deep and propelled myself forward. And it's all self-determination. I'm a big proponent of that. So
awesome. Josh, movie. You have plenty of time to think about it now.
Yeah, I've only actually seen it once, but if we're talking about super inspirational, The Pursuit of Happiness. That is a phenomenal Will Smith movie.
Yep.
You want to talk about a guy who doesn't quit, who made a lot of mistakes and then somehow found a way to strive through it, man. That is a tearjerker and an inspirational movie all the time.
And a true story.
And a true story. Yeah.
All right, listen, guys, give out your contact information if anybody wants to contact you.
Mark?
Yeah, you can hit me up at sgreinvestments.com, and it's just Mark at sgreinvestments.
All right, Josh?
So Three Pillars Capital, that's tpcgcap.com. And I'm Josh W at tpcgcap.com.
Awesome. This has been another edition of Multifamily Deal Lab.
This has been another edition of Multifamily Deal Lab. If watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, so you don't miss the next session, and review the contact links on this page.